guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about some of my favorite vampire books that I think should be turned into shows, movies, anything really. These are books that I read and I could visually see what was happening with how descriptive the author was. I'm like, that would be a beautiful movie or a beautiful multi-part series or anything of the sort. So today I'm going to be talking about 5 vampire books that I think should be turned into a movie or show. The first book is a series I actually just started. I just ordered book 2 and I hope to get into it more. It is the Anita Blake Vampire Hunter series. Let me tell you, it is awesome. Now obviously I've only read one book, but I have done a little bit of research and spoiled some things for myself, and I'm very excited about where this series goes. Now normally I'm a person who doesn't like books that go from the vampire hunter's perspective, because obviously I root for the vampire every single time. But this one, I don't know, there's just something different about it, and it just drew me in. The writing is really good. Very descriptive, very pulls you into the moment. And Anita, who's the main character, she is a vampire hunter. She can also bring people back from the dead. She's known as an animator, so she can bring back zombies, which are just normal in this universe. In the Anita Blake universe, there's vampires, there's werewolves, there's jaguars, rats. Now, you can transform into basically any animal. There's zombies, there's ghouls, there's all kinds of shit. She hunts vampires, and she's killed 14 at the beginning of this book. And she's called the Executioner. But she is like a small, petite woman. She isn't very muscular. She isn't very tall. But she gets the job done, and she's very sarcastic about it. And I love sarcastic characters. I mean, Stiles Stilinski is basically my spirit animal. So, obviously, I'm going to like Anita. I haven't read the entire series, obviously, so I don't know where it goes. But I think that this would be a really good TV show where you could do maybe kind of series of unfortunate events where you do each book within a 2-part episode thing. Because I don't know how many books there are in the series, but I know there's a lot. So you could do part 1 and 2, this, and then you could do 3 and 4 with the next one. And, you could do something like that. Because I don't know if there's enough in here to make an entire season out of it. But I think a part 1 and 2 could be pretty interesting. And I just really want to see what Jean-Claude would look like as, visually. I am not a ginormous reader, even though this video kind of says the opposite of that. My preferred method of entertainment is visual. So I like TV shows, I love movies, music videos, I like to see, I like to hear, I like to do all that. Reading is at the end of my media consumption because, you have to imagine it yourself. Don't get me wrong, I do like to read, but it's not my preferred mode of entertainment. So if they could just take these books and make them into TV shows or movies, that would be pretty sick. I'm pretty sure there was word that there could have been a show, I think in 2009, but then nothing came of it. So if anybody wants to make a vampire hunter TV show, sarcastic vampire hunter who can raise zombies, sounds pretty cool to me. The last book came out in 1993, so there's quite an extensive universe for Anita Blake because she's continually kept writing, which is awesome. This book, however, is new, and actually the sequel is coming out in April, which I plan to buy as soon as I can. This book is Silver Under Nightfall, and let me freaking tell you that this is a piece of art. I bought this book at Barnes & Noble, and I didn't really know much about it, and I was like, oh, let's try it. It's amazing. Now, just like Anita Blake, the main character is a little bit sarcastic. He also is self-deprecating. He doesn't think highly of himself, but a lot of the other characters don't either, but there's a few that do. So the main story is that there's this, there's a lot of lore in this book, but there's a ton of different vampire groups. A few of them had gone extinct, but there's vampire groups, and then there's humans, and then they have these hunters that kind of deal with these vampires and stuff like that. But there's a new threat on the horizon. There's these giant monsters that can mutate and just get ginormous, and they're gross. Let me tell you, they're gross. And so Remy has to deal with this shit, and he meets these two vampires. One is from, I believe, Sect 4. I know there's a specific name for it. And then who is married a vampire from another one that has basically gone extinct, that no longer exists anymore. And she has the power to literally, like, shoot sunlight out of her veins because of a procedure, which I don't want to spoil for you. She can shoot sunlight out of her veins. They're married, right? But they both have a fascination with Remy, and then you find out that they both love him. And then there's a whole threesome situation that happens, but they don't rush into it. They don't have it where a lot of vampire books, the problem is that they just go straight to sex, because vampires are known to be flirtatious and, you know, sexual images, and they just go right into it, which is my major issue with a lot of vampire books, is because don't get me wrong, that's fine, but I want story before you bombard me with stuff like that. Give me some story. This one, you get through most of the book before that even happens. There's flirting. There are moments where they're very close to flipping over the edge, but they don't actually do anything like that until way further into the book. And by that point, it feels justified. It's not like they rushed into it. They don't know each other. They're like, let's just do it. They've gotten to know each other. They care about one another. And it's actually really sweet. Remy has this thing where he's always been used by other people. His father uses him as a weapon. Girls use him for information. He's always used. But the two vampires that like him don't want to use him. But they actually care about his feelings. And they don't want it to feel like they're just like using him for something. They want him to enjoy it as well. And it's actually really sweet. And book 2 is coming out soon. And let me tell you, I'm going to buy that as fast as I can. Now, there was a lot of lore in this book. This is a lore-heavy book. But it was described in a way that I could understand. It's not like I was thrown in the deep end and I don't know what's going on. It was very well described, and I was very invested in this story, and I wanted to know what was going to happen next, and the interactions between the characters felt so natural, and it was just, this is a good book. And I think that it could be a TV show, honestly, with how much information is in here. You could also do a movie with this. A lot of these books I'd prefer to be TV shows, because you get a lot more information out of it, you get to see more of it, because in an hour and a half, you can't see a lot of this book. So I think a TV show would be perfect for this book. Book 2 is already on the way. Guys, this is new. I believe this came out in 2022. So this is a very new book. I found it at Barnes & Noble one day and just thought I'd take a risk on it. And man, am I happy I did, because this is awesome. I highly recommend everybody to read this book. If you like sarcastic main characters and flirtatious vampires, but flirtatious vampires that love consent. Because there's a lot of flirtatious vampires in books that don't care about consent, and they're just all, you know. This book, however, they want Remy to want it as much as they do, which is freaking awesome. So, it has action, it has lore, it has some sensual moments, but honestly, awesome book, should be a TV show, 10 out of 10. This book has a little bit of controversy over it. Some people really love this series, other people really don't like this series, and honestly, I'm on the fence. But it would be the House of Night series. It is not my favorite vampire series, but I read this in middle school, I think, and middle school me thought these were the shit. Now, not really, but I do think it's a very interesting concept, and I think it could work for either a show or a series of movies, because of how they're written and how, you know, things could work. And I think, you know, the vampires are different. There's a lot of lore with this one, and you're chosen to be a vampire, basically like marked. You know, if your body goes through the change, you get all these beautiful tattoos, which I think is really neat. It's like magic tattoos. And a lot of the vampires have like a connection to the elements, so fire, water, air. They can like control it, so they're like half witch basically. And it goes around Zoe, and Zoe of course is just very powerful off the get-go. She's going through things that normal fledglings don't go through, basically skipping steps. She has a group of friends that are all outcasts, but they all have a specialized element, and they all kind of work together to do certain tasks. They have to create circles, which is basically like standing around with candles and bringing the elements forth and then using that. Once they get old enough, they do drink blood. I don't remember if they have fangs or not. But I don't believe you can become a vampire from being bitten. I think it's like you're chosen or you're not. And most vampires don't make it through the transition and they will die, which is unfortunate. And there's like a whole battle that goes and ensues because some of these vampires die and then they come back as something else entirely, which is fun. And then there's like crow people. And this is all based around the goddess Nyx, right? Nyx. I believe she is an actual goddess from lore. I'm not positive on that one. But I do think it's a very interesting concept. She's actually the authors, because it's a duo, I think a mom and daughter. They published the Fledgling Handbook, which is talked about in the books, which I think is cool. Some of the characters are written really well. Some of the characters I hate. They're written poorly, or they just suck in general. But honestly, I enjoyed the books. They're not perfect by any means. No book really is perfect. It's got problems. And of course, it all depends on when the book was written and the issues that were happening during that time. Sometimes things age well, sometimes things don't. I do believe this could be something. I think there was news that this was going to get turned into a show or something. Of course, if it fell through, I'd watch it. Maybe just tweak a few things. Which, when it comes to show adaptations, they usually tweak a few things anyway. But I'd watch it. I'd at least give it a chance. This book has become a movie and TV show. However, both were canceled. The movie was going to turn into a movie series. After the first one, it bombed. They went, nah, we're good. Then, I think last year, the year before, they turned it into a TV show. It got one season, and then it was canceled. I don't know why this is having so many problems with getting off the ground, because I do think it's a really interesting idea. I just think they're not doing it right. They're not formatting it correctly, or something's happening where it just keeps failing. This would be the Vampire Academy series. This series I also read a while ago, and honestly, I adored it. I've read all 6 books, and let me tell you, I enjoyed every second of it. As you've seen through all of these books, a lot of the main characters are sarcastic, because I just connect with sarcastic main characters, I guess. And I think this could work as a show or a movie series if they did it correctly. I don't know why they keep fucking it up, but they keep doing shit that makes it fail. You know, the movie that came out wasn't that good, but I enjoyed it. I had a good time watching, and I wouldn't mind seeing another one. It gave me the same vibes as the Mortal Instruments movie, where they tried, they just couldn't execute it correctly, and it failed. Though I do enjoy both. The show I actually liked. I liked the interactions between certain characters. Obviously, some of the writing was not good, but a lot of the moments I was like, okay, I'm okay with this. Like, I was actually okay with it. It wasn't a perfect adaptation, but I was having a good time. They got canceled too. So maybe one day we'll get a movie or a show where it doesn't get canceled and we actually get this. It doesn't have to be a complete rendition of this book. They just gotta find the right way to format it where people are gonna watch it. I don't know what that is. Obviously, I've seen the movie and the show. I enjoyed both of them. Not a lot of other people did. So maybe one day we'll get something where we can get a successful series or movie franchise, because I would watch. Because there are some moments later on in the books, specifically between Rose and Dimitri, that I would love to see in a movie or show. Specifically when Dimitri, turns Strigoi and evil. That would be such an interesting dynamic. That whole scenes, when Rose goes to look for Dimitri and he basically keeps her captive, that whole interaction is just awesome. And eventually, he comes back from being evil. But it's like, I would just love to see that. And we've never gotten to that point because they always adapt like the first book or parts of the second one or whatever. We've never gotten to those books like ever. So I just, hopefully one day we'll get a successful adaptation. I hope. And pray. The last book I'm going to be talking about today also got an adaptation, and it was a movie. This movie also was, I believed, supposed to turn into a series, and it didn't. It failed. It came out around, well, a little bit before the Vampire Academy movie, I think like 4 years beforehand. So they tried to, start this series, and it didn't work. But honestly, I'd like to see it. This is The Vampire's Assistant. This is a ginormous one. This has the first 3 books in it. That's why it's so ginormous. This series is actually really good. This series is based around Darren Shan. I believe he's in middle school. I don't believe he's a high school student. He's in middle school. They go to a freak show they're not supposed to, him and his friend. He gets obsessed with the vampire's spider and decides, I'm going to steal it, which is stupid. Don't steal a vampire spider. Takes the spider home, tries to hide it, fails, almost kills his best friend, and the only way to save his best friend is to become the vampire's assistant, fake his death, go on the road. He's miserable at first, refuses to eat. Eventually, he does eat, but it's like really gruesome. Like, if I remember correctly, his friend dies, and the only way for him to save himself is to eat his friend, which they don't do that in the movie. I think the movie is based off of the first few books. If I remember correctly, they like took bits and pieces. But honestly, this series, like, it gets very, like, they go to a vampire mountain, and, like, there's this whole ritual thing, and it's, like, a Maze Runner situation where, he has to go through trials to, like, be a real vampire or something, because he's a kid, and they don't like when they don't like vampire kids. He's only a half vampire, obviously, he's not a full one, but he has to, like, go through these tests where he has to go through a maze underwater, he has to, like, do, like, these feats of agility and strength and will, and it's just like, damn. And I have not read every single one of these books. I believe I've only read the first 6. I don't know how many books there are, but I do think that this could work. A lot of these books, I do believe, could be a part 1 and 2 situation. This series has a lot of books. Anita Blake has a lot of books. So does the House of Night series. And I think if they wanted to, they could do a book a season, they could do a book a movie, or they could do part 1 and 2 episodes for the book. So they could do like 10 episodes a season or whatever and go through 5 books, or, a little bit more or something like that. Kind of like Series of Unfortunate Events did, and I think they did a good job with that because they just did 2 episodes per book, basically. Honestly, I'd love to see it. I actually liked this movie. With a lot of the adaptations, at least for the last 2, I actually enjoyed them. They were not perfect, they had issues, but I enjoyed them. Not a lot of other people enjoyed them, obviously, because it didn't go anywhere. I would love to see this as a movie, or I think a show would work a lot better with this sort of thing instead of a series of movies. And I would watch it. A lot of these I would watch. I would watch it in a heartbeat. Whether it was to enjoy or judge, I don't know. Still got the Goodwill sticker on there. But I would watch. And I think it would do a really good job if they just formatted it correctly. Now, 3 of the books I've talked about do not have any adaptations at all. The last 2 do, but they failed. If they could just work on it and format it in a way that works, that makes the fans happy, but is also good, I think, it could work. And I think this would be a good show or movie I would watch. I've actually seen the movie for this book multiple times. It's got a lot of famous people in it, surprisingly. This movie has way too many famous people for the... I don't know why they agreed to make it, but it's good. It should be turned into something. Now, of course, I could talk about a lot of other books. There are many more books that I wanted to put in this video. If you'd like a part 2, let me know. Honestly, I would be okay with any of the books I've written turning into movies or shows. I would watch wholeheartedly. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If there's any books that you would love to see turned into a show or movie, comment down below. If you liked the books I mentioned, let me know what your favorite part is. If you've never read them, I highly suggest. Specifically, I would suggest these 2. This one is awesome. This one I just started. There's a lot of books in this series, but I enjoyed the first one. I enjoyed it so much that I bought the 3rd one at Barnes & Noble the other day, and I ordered the 2nd one so I could read all 3. Now, obviously, there's a lot of books, and I'm going to be spending money on these, but I highly suggest these 2. These 2 are totally my favorite out of the 5, but I would suggest any of them. I'm a broody type of vampire reader. I don't read vampire horror books because, well, technically this is horror, but I don't like vampires that rip people apart. That's not my cup of tea. I like the vampires who are broody, who are like, aha. So if you're into, like, young adult vampire romance with broody vampires, I got book suggestions for you if you want. But alright guys, I hope you enjoyed. I had a lot of fun with this. This was just a simple little sit-down video because I just wanted to talk about these books. I literally just finished this like yesterday, and it was so good. And I was like, the whole time reading it, I'm like, this should be a show. This should be a show. This should be a show. So I was like, why not make a video of other books I think should be turned into visual media? Let me tell you. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll be back next week, and happy reading. Whoosh.